Sing along with me this morning. Jesus loves the little children, all the children of the world. Red and yellow, black and white, they are precious in His sight. Jesus loves the little children of the world. You know, our sermon text this morning is about children, but the lesson being taught is not limited to those with only a few years of life. Amen. Follow along as I read just 3 verses from Matthew chapter 19. Matthew chapter 19, verses 13 through 15. Then little children were brought to Jesus for Him to place His hands on them and pray for them. But the disciples rebuked those who brought them. Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." When He had placed His hands on them, He went on from there. The question I always wondered was, why were the people bringing their children to Jesus? Well, it turns out that this is a tradition in the Jewish culture to bring your baby, when he or she turned a year old, to the rabbi, so that the rabbi might bless the child and offer a prayer for him or her. By bringing their children to Jesus, the people here were testifying Jesus was a great teacher. He was a rabbi in their eyes. Apparently, they were bringing their children, regardless of their age, or if they'd been blessed already by a rabbi, to Jesus. And that's a powerful thing that was going on. They were basically, in a very subtle way, admitting that not only was Jesus a great teacher, but maybe He was the greatest teacher of all. Maybe He was the long-awaited Messiah. That being the case, why were the apostles then so upset the parents were bringing their children to Jesus? Now, I think there may be several reasons why they were upset. First, Jesus had left His ministry around Galilee and was heading now towards Jerusalem with plans to be there by Passover. If Jesus sat around blessing children all day, they'd be thrown off their schedule and might not make it on time. And they were concerned about getting there in time for Passover. Another reason why the apostles were upset has to do with the context of this story. As we saw last week, in the first part of Matthew chapter 19, they were in the middle of a very serious adult conversation about marriage and divorce. They were having this adult conversation, and the children were just in the way. Children in the Jewish society were cherished and loved, but they were also unimportant. Their opinions did not count. They were to listen and learn, and not to interfere with the adults while they talked. Yet another reason, and the reason I think that I want us to consider today, why the apostles yelled to parents for bringing their children to Jesus, is that children were like children everywhere. When I was 7 or 8 years old, I was given my first Bible. That's a picture of it right there. The first Bible I ever owned as a child. It's an old King James version of the Bible with the words of Jesus printed with red ink. And the cover has this artist's conception of our text this morning, of Jesus and the children. You see Jesus sitting there peacefully, his arms outstretched. He's surrounded by all these sweet, quiet, nice children. Maybe you've seen this picture before, but it's a sentimental and warm picture, which I doubt if it was accurate. Because some of the babies that were brought to Jesus were probably fussy, needed their diapers changed. Some of the toddlers were probably running around, screaming like banshees and knocking people over. And some of the little boys were probably pulling the hair of the little girls. In other words, they were probably acting like children everywhere and all times. Well, Jesus used this incident to underline the point He was trying to make about divorce, and that He will shortly make about being good. He said here, the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. When He said those words, He was talking about all those screaming babies and whining kids. The kingdom of heaven belongs to them. But more than that, he's telling us about the unconditional love he has, even when we act like screaming babies and whining kids. In other words, Jesus still loves us in spite of ourselves, in spite of the mistakes we make, and in spite of the obnoxious ways we behave sometimes. Jesus loves screaming babies and whining kids. Jesus loves even the kids who wreck the house. The kids who wreck the house. When children enter your home, as most of us know, your house will never be the same again. Look, it takes twice as much time to clean it. The grass is never as green or lush as it used to be. The walls are a little duller color. The kitchen floor needs mopped after every meal. And the best topsoil can be found in a trail from your back door to your child's room. It's not only the physical possessions that are wrecked when children enter our home. Your whole schedule turns upside down, doesn't it? From 2 a.m. feedings to school activities to Little League, soccer, recitals, and so much more. Suddenly, you have more than just yourself to consider in planning your day. We are very much like little children. We may not wreck our houses, but we do wreck our lives. We have wrecked the house we live in. As Paul wrote in Romans chapter 3, there is no one righteous, not even one. There is no one who understands, no one who seeks God. All have turned away. They have together become worthless. There is no one who does good, not even one. Their throats are open graves. Their tongues practice deceit. The poison of vipers is on their lips. Their mouths are full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Ruin and misery mark their ways. And the way of peace they do not know. There is no fear of God before their eyes. That's a pretty depressing thought, isn't it? It's not what we usually want to hear. It's not the kind of thoughts we like to think much about. We prefer the I'm okay, you're okay mentality. Kind of like the kid whose room was literally covered with his clothes and toys and books. And his mother asked him, why didn't he put his things away? And he said, I like my stuff like this. That way I know where everything is. We have wrecked our houses so much that sometimes we don't know any other way. In the movie Castaway, after the Tom Hanks character is rescued, he's brought home and he's put up in a very nice motel. The trouble is, he can't sleep on the nice, comfortable bed because he's used to sleeping on the hard ground. Sometimes we wallow in the wrecked house of our sin so much we don't even know what it's like to have a clean house. There's also a problem with trying to get kids to clean up their wrecked houses, isn't it? We all have that problem. I used to nag my son JD all the time because what he would like to do when he come home from school or wherever he was at, his bedroom was upstairs and there was a stairway to the end of it. He would take his shoes off, put them on the steps, and leave them there until next morning when he got them. And sometimes I trip over them, and I did not like that at all. So I would always yell at him about putting his shoes back into his room. And when I would tell him that, he would pick them up and he would take them to his room. But the next day, he would put them out there on the steps again. I was always frustrated because he never seemed to listen. The problem was, you see, it was hard for him to understand why he should put his shoes up when mine were sitting on the steps right next to his. Now, in my defense, I did take my shoes off, put them there when I got home, but in the evening I'd take them and bring them back to my room. But he never saw that. He was already in bed. However, he did not see that, so why should he do that if I wasn't doing that? We live in wrecked houses. What was it Jesus said? How can you say to your brother, Let me take the speck out of your eye when all the time there's a plank in your own eye. Maybe we're doing the whole thing backwards. Maybe we are hitting our heads against the wall, trying to make others clean up the mess they've made in their houses, when what we need is to be more concerned about the mess in our own house. We all know that abortion is repulsive, pornography is offensive, divorce is wrong, and all the sin in the world is still sin, no matter what we might call it. However, rather than trying to legislate morality, why don't we show others Jesus? He is the only one who can clean up the wreck we have made. And He loves us in spite of the wreck we have made in our lives. Jesus loves even the kids who won't wipe their noses. Remember years ago, Dr. James Dobson had a book out called The Strong-Willed Child. When she was little, we used to say that our daughter Erica could be the poster child from that book. In fact, I believe that if Dr. Dobson had ever met her, he probably would have resigned and apologized for writing that book in the first place. One of the joys of being a grandparent, you see, is payback. Yes, I guess it is. I now watch Erica deal with her children, and I smugly smile and think, what goes around comes around.
Amen.
One time Erica told me that her daughter Leslie is stubborn. And I just laughed. I said, well, she got her stubbornness honest.
Yes.
Because after all, we did call her bossy boots when she was little. She did not want to hear that from me, but that's the truth. Children, you see, can be defiant. I was defiant as a child, I know that. If we let them wipe their nose, or whether we tell them to wipe their nose, instead of using a tissue, they'll use your sleeve, right? It's popular to rationalize defiant behavior by saying things like, well, they're spreading their wings, they're searching for their own identity and expressing their opinion. There may be some truth to that, but defiance is still defiance. Mark Twain may have been onto something when he wrote, the best way to raise a child is to lock him in the barrel, feeding him through the knothole. When he became 16, plug the knothole. How do we usually respond when someone's defiant? We usually are defiant in return, aren't we? It's the old eye for an eye thinking. If someone yells at me, I'll yell right back at him. And the truth is, no matter how patient and forgiving we are, there comes a time when we give up on a person who won't wipe their noses correctly. That's why back in chapter 18, Peter asked Jesus how many times he had to forgive someone. We will forgive, but we won't be stupid. Leon sent me a cartoon about that the other day. Maybe you've seen it. And Jesus is teaching that, and one of the apostles shaking his head and saying, I didn't know math was involved. You know, we do that, don't we? We don't want to be stupid. We always keep our guard up. And our attitude is, I'll forgive you, I won't forget. Now, some of that is just natural human tendency, human reaction. For instance, we might forgive a child molester, but we won't put him in charge of our nursery. And there comes a time when, for everyone's own good, ties must be cut with the person who continually hurts us. You know, adults are like children too. We sometimes defiantly refuse to wipe our noses. Even those of us who claim to be a Christian sometimes, for whatever reason, don't do what we're supposed to do. That's just what Jesus was talking about to the adults before the children came up to him. The first part of Matthew chapter 19 was about divorce, remember, and how much God hates divorce. We all know that. But as we also talked about last Sunday, there's not a person here today who has not been touched by divorce, either their own divorce or a family member or a close friend. See, we know what's right. We realize He made a promise, but abuse, adultery, or something has broken our vows. And like in so many other areas of our lives, we don't wipe our noses, or if we do, we try to wipe our noses the way we want to instead of the way God said. Our excuse is also just like little children. When my daughter Kathy was younger, I would correct her for something she had done wrong, and I'd always ask her the same question. I'd say, Kathy, why did you do that? And her answer was always, I don't know. And that made me more angry than ever when she said that, but she would always do that. Or, I forgot. And I think sometimes she said those things with a slight hope and chance that she might get away with what she had done, even though she never did. You know, any court of law will tell you ignorance of the law is no excuse. We are guilty of willfully disobeying God, and we deserve to be punished. But instead, as Paul wrote in Romans chapter 5, God demonstrates His own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. So keep that verse, Romans chapter 5, verse 8. Keep that verse in mind the next time someone is defiant to you. Can we be that forgiving? Well, finally, Jesus loves even the kids that we constantly worry about. I have constantly worried about my son J.D. When he was little, I'd say, well, why isn't he eating more? When will he walk? When will he ever be potty trained? All of those things happen. In fact, he had a very healthy appetite. Actually, he never learned to walk. He just went from crawling to running. But I still worried about him. I worried about the speech impediment he had when he was young. And I worried about how he would do in school. When we moved when he was 9 years old, I worried about how he would adjust and if he'd make new friends. Both things he did better and quicker than I did. When he has a fever or a runny nose, I worried. When he went somewhere without us, I worried. And when he started to drive, the worry increased tenfold. You know, the worry never stops. We all know that as parents of adult children. We know there are terrible and hard things in the world. Now, in my more rational moments, I know that he'll be able to handle them, but in my worrying moments, I get upset, thinking that he will have to face them in the first place. All of you, as parents, know exactly what I'm talking about when I say I worry about JD. We worry about our kids. What did Jesus see when those little children in Matthew chapter 19 came to him? Could he look at them and know how each of them would turn out? Did he see the suffering and pain they would go through? Even look at that picture of the sweet little kids. What kind of suffering and pain did they see later on in life? Did Jesus worry about them? Jesus' response to this worry was to bring the children to his side and love them. They were different personalities. They had different gifts and abilities. They looked and acted differently. Some of them were nice and sweet, while others were disagreeable and stubborn. But he loved them all, just as they were. And he opened the kingdom to them. Remember the old invitation hymn, Just As I Am? Someone asked me one time, I wonder how many people have responded when that hymn was sung. There have probably been thousands, if not more. Then the comment was made, I guess not too many do anymore, because the song isn't sung that much anymore. Well, maybe the song isn't sung much anymore, but the idea is still valid. It's still there. Just as we are, Jesus accepts us. He loves us. He offers us salvation. What do we do with screaming babies and whining kids. All parents know you just love them. What do we do with screaming and whining adults? Jesus is teaching us just to love them as well. Peter wrote in 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 8, above all, love each other deeply, because love covers over a multitude of sins. That seems so simple. Shouldn't there be more? No, that's the bottom line. What do we do about the divorced, the not so good people, the sinner, the person who's hurt us, the person that's always going off the deep end? Jesus gives us the answer when he loved the little children. Shouldn't we be doing the same?